Today we are going to be finding x and y intercepts, and tomorrow we're going to use those x and y intercepts to graph lines like the one we have up here in the top of the screen. So let's talk about what intercepts are. The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. Now, what do you think the x value is? How far do you have to go to the left or to the right when you're on the y-axis? Well, the answer is no spaces. X equals 0, and that's what I wrote down right here. So for the y-intercept, we're going to find that by setting x equal to 0. For the x-intercept, it's the same sort of principle. You're on the x-axis. You don't go up. You don't go down. The point is on the x-axis. So for our x-intercept, we're going to end up setting y equal to 0 because we don't go up, we don't go down, we're staying right on that axis. So let's take a look at a few examples here. We'll start off with the x-intercept. And for that x-intercept, again, we're going to set y equal to 0. And so when we do that, this term cancels out. And so I'm going to show you on the first one, and then after that I'm not even going to write that y term when we go ahead and do that. So I'm going to start off with 4x minus 6, but in place of the 6, we're going to put, or in place of the y, we're going to end up putting 0. And so that's what we're doing here. We're setting y, this value right here, equal to 0. And we're writing everything else out the same way. And so I've got the 4x, the minus 6, but instead of y we put 0, and this all equals 12. So when we do this, again, the reason why we did this is to cancel out the y term. So we're just left with the x, and now we just have 4x equals 12. Well, from that point, all we have to do is just one opposite operation, just divide by 4, and we'll have our x-intercept. So when we do that division, we now have x equals 3. And so we can write that as an ordered pair. So when y was 0, we got x is 3. So that's why 0 goes in place of the y term, and the x term is 3. So there is one of the points. But we still have one more to find. We have to find the y-intercept. So we're going to go ahead and write down y-intercept, and I'll just abbreviate intercept, int. And again, we're going to set x this time, x equal to 0. We set x equal to 0 because we're not going to go left, we're not going to go right, we're just going to stay right on the y-axis. So we're going to rewrite our equation right here, except in place of x, we're going to end up putting 0. So we'll write down 4, but again, in place of x, we're going to put the number 0. And then we'll go ahead and rewrite everything else that's there. So we've got the minus 6y, and this all equals 12. So we go ahead and do some work. Again, 4 times 0 makes 0, so all I'm left with is the negative 6y equals 12. So I go ahead and do a little bit more work there. Divide by that negative 6 on both sides. And that gives me my y value. And that'll be my answer. Y equals negative 2. But I'm going to write this as an ordered pair just to show you that it is a separate point. So when x is 0, y is negative 2. And that's the point. The y-intercept, so that's the value on the y-axis. This is the x-intercept. Shows me where I go on the x-axis. So this will be our answer. This is what you put in the answer column, just 2 separate points. And let's move on to another one. So let's take a look at this one. This one's a little different. It's got a fraction as a coefficient. So let's see what we do there. Well, we'll start with the x-intercept again. So I'll write down x-intercept, and again, every single time, for the x-intercept, you're going to set y equal to 0. So it's going to cancel out this y term. So all we're left with is a 1/2 x. Now I'll go ahead and write the minus 2, but in place of the y, again, we're putting 0. and then we go ahead and fill in the rest of the equation. And so we have a equals 2. And so again, that 0 term cancels out. So in the future, we don't even need to write this y term when we're trying to find the x-intercept, because we know it just cancels out. So what we're left with is a 1/2 x equals 2. Now this is where people have trouble. What do we do to get rid of that 1/2? Well, people think always, oh, I could divide by 1/2. And yeah, you could do that. But when you divide by fractions, you end up having to multiply by the reciprocal. So that's what I'm going to do initially, and that will take care of our fraction here. So I'm going to put some parentheses around that, and then write down the reciprocal right next to it, and multiply. And you'll see how these 2's end up canceling. And so I'm just left with x. But if I multiply by 2 over 1 or 2 on this side, I need to do the same thing on this side. So I'll put it times by 2. 2 and 2 over 1 are the same number. So I go ahead and multiply those two numbers, and there it is, x equals 4. So that is my x-intercept. So I can write that as an ordered pair, 4, 0, because I put 0 in for y, and I got 4 for x. So let's take a look at another one here. We've got the y-intercept we still have to do. And again, for the y-intercept, we're going to set x equal to 0. And so when we do that, we'll rewrite what we have, 1/2, but in place of x, we're putting 0. And so when we do that, this is what we've got. A 0 there. And this will just cancel out. So, on the next problem, I'm going to save myself a step. I'm not even going to write this x term, because we don't even need to. It's just automatically going to cancel out anyhow when we go ahead and multiply by 0. And so we go ahead and rewrite what's left over. And that's the important part right here, because this, again, is gone. We set that x equal to 0, so we don't have to write that part. So all we have left is this, negative 2y equals 2. So from there, we just have that one step, and that one step is to get rid of that negative 2 that's out in front of the y. So the way we'll do that is divide by negative 2. And once we've got that, then we can go ahead and come up with our x value. So here it is, or our y value in this case. So y equals negative 1. Negative 1 because we have 2 divided by negative 2. And one negative makes a negative. So our answer is, when we put 0 in for x, we got negative 1. And that is the y-intercept. So now we've got the x-intercept, 4, 0, and the y-intercept, 0, negative 1. And those 2 points are on that line. So let's take a look at another one. This one's a little different in that usually on the last 2 problems, x and y have been on one side. Here they're not. The y and the x are on opposite sides. Well, when we find the x and y intercept, we want them on the same side so that we only have a one-step problem to do. So let's do that. First thing we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move this y term over. I'm going to subtract 2y. Now I'm subtracting because you look at the sign in front of the term, never behind. You're always in front. This is a positive 2y, so I'm going to take 2y away from both sides. Now when we write it, the new equation, in a different form, we're going to write this as 4 equals, and then negative x minus 2y. So now we're going to go ahead and solve it just like we had done before. So I'll start off by finding that x-intercept. Now remember, the x-intercept was when I set y equal to what number? 0. That's right. So when we write 0 in for y, it cancels out this term. It'll be gone. And so when we do that, all I'm left with is this. 4 equals negative x. Where'd the minus 2y go? Well, it's gone. It cancels out. I cross that out because I'm setting it equal to 0. So That's gone now, so all I'm left with is a negative x equals 4. So to get rid of that negative sign, you know what I can do? Well, hopefully he said multiply or divide by a negative, because that will do it. If you multiply or divide by a negative, it cancels out the negative sign. So what we've got left is negative 4 equals x. So my answer would be, when y is 0, x is negative 4. So negative 4 comma 0. So let's take a look at the next one. We've got the y-intercept next. So the y-intercept, we're going to end up setting x equal to 0. So when we set x equal to 0, remember, this term right here, it's gone. It cancels out. All we're going to be left with is this, the negative 2y and the positive 4. So we'll go ahead and take out that negative x and just rewrite what's left over. We've got a 4 equals negative 2y. So now we just need to get rid of that negative 2. That's the coefficient of y. So we do that by dividing by negative 2 on both sides. So once we've done that, we've got our value. Negative 2 equals y. So we write the answer as an ordered pair. When x is 0, y is negative 2. So there it is, our 2 points that make up the intercepts for that graph. And then from there, tomorrow, we're going to end up graphing those 2 points. We'll end up being able to draw the line just by those 2 points. Well, here's another problem that's similar in that we've got x's and y's on two sides, but now we've got lots of x's and lots of y's. So what we want to do is the same sort of thing we did on letter C. Remember how we moved the y term over by doing an opposite operation? Well, we're going to do the same thing with this one. But instead of moving the 2x and the y over to the right-hand side, we want to move the 10x and the negative y over to the left, because I want to isolate the negative 3, so it's by itself. So we're going to take this 10x, and I'm going to subtract it. I'm going to put minus 10x, and that cancels out this term. And I'll do the same thing on the other side, putting it underneath the term I combine it with. Let's do the same thing with this y. Let's add the y this time to cancel these out. So I'll add y over to this side. And then let's see what's left over. So for that x term, I have to subtract. Remember, I'm subtracting because they're opposite in sign. And that leaves me with a negative 8x and then a plus 2y. This all equals negative 3. So now we're ready to come up with our two intercepts. So let's start with the x-intercept. Remember, we're going to set y equal to 0. So we're canceling out this y term, so it's no longer there. It's just going to cross right off. So all we're left with is a negative 8x equals negative 3. And that's what I'm going to end up writing down next. So go ahead and write that down. Negative 8x equals negative 3. And so to solve that, all I'm going to do is in one opposite operation. That's to divide by negative 8. And negative 8 doesn't go into 3, but we can cancel out the negatives. And we've got ourselves a fraction for the x-intercept. So x equals, we've got 3/8. And so what we're going to do is write that as an ordered pair. And I'll write that as when y is 0, oops, got 0 on that side, we're going to put 3/8 on the left-hand side because it represents the x-intercept. Clean up that 8 a bit. And so there it is. There is our point. Our point is a fraction. It's the x value, 3/8, when y is 0. So let's take a look at the next one. We've got the y-intercept to do as well. So y-intercept, remember, we're going to set x equal to 0. I do that because for the y-intercept, it's on the y-axis. You don't go left, you don't go right. You're right on that y-axis. So here it is. We're going to take this x term here, this term, and we're going to just cross it right out